Today we are talking about Autodesk transition to named user. So this will affect anyone who has network licenses still out there up for renewal. Just to kind of set the stage, make sure that I'm giving everyone the correct information. We're going to start with a couple of poll questions. It's okay if you don't know this information. We're going to help uncover that today. Go ahead and move on to the questions.
All right, and I can read that out for everybody. This first question is, how many networked licenses do you have? Less than 20, 20 to 50, 50 to 100, or more than 100? Again, that's how many networked licenses do you have? Less than 20, 20 to 50, 50 to 100, or more than 100? What would you say is the most common answer to this question, Savannah?
That's a great question. I think that most folks are probably in, I'll go wide and say the 20 to 100 range. Lots of folks have 20 to 50 and they will kind of go through a certain onboarding process. And then for those who have more than 50, especially if they have more than 100, it of course kind of creates an additional layer of complexity and a few additional steps to be aware of.
Gotcha. It looks like we have just about everybody submitted. You cool with moving on to the results?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, perfect. So most of the folks in this group are in that less than 20 license range, which is great to be aware of kind of how this process will affect you. And then a lot of folks in that 20 to 50 as well. Perfect, great to know. Let's go ahead and move on to the next question.
All right, and this one is, are you familiar with Autodesk's named user trade-in program? Yes or no? Again, that's, are you familiar with Autodesk's named user trade-in program? Yes or no? Savannah, I'm guessing that's going to be prudent to know for this presentation.
Yes, but don't stress if you're not familiar with this yet. We're going to go over what exactly the details are. Just trying to capture what level I should go into that today.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that one was quick. It looks like we have most people submitted now. I think I can go ahead and move on.
Okay, so a lot of us are not familiar with this program yet. A few of us are. This is great. We're going to kind of set the stage and dive into what this looks like today.
All right. Next question.
Go ahead.
All right. And this one is, which named user subscription do you plan to convert to? Standard, premium, or not sure? Again, that's which named user subscription do you plan to convert to? Standard subscription, premium subscription, or I'm not sure. Do most people just use the standard subscription, or do you think they'll plan to?
I think so. I think that, as is implied in the name, standard is what most folks are going to opt towards. The premium subscription is an additional uplift, and it does require 50 seats. So a smaller category of customers that are eligible for that. We'll talk later about kind of what those benefits and additional features available are with premium.
All right. It looks like we have just about everybody submitted, so I can go ahead and move on.
Sounds good. Okay, a little bit of both. Hopefully we will all walk out today with a little bit more clarity on which plan is the best for us. With that, I think that gives us a good amount of information to set the stage. I'm going to go ahead and share my PowerPoint, Caitlin. Is that correct?
Yes, I'll let you know when I can see it.
Okay. Let me know when
you're good to go.
All right, perfect. So again, the goal of today is to give a holistic overview of everything that is going to take place in the transition to named user and how it affects you specifically based on the number of seats you need to move and the product mix that you've got. So for those of us who have heard about Autodesk transition to named user, They're moving away from network licenses that can be shared by multiple designers at once to a model where each named user has an exact license assigned to them at a 1-for-1 ratio. So there's no more license sharing going on. And while this is a really big change in how licenses are used and shared and a general change in the model, the benefit is that it's going to provide a lot more clarity to you on how your licenses are being used. And so from here on out, as you come to each contract renewal, you should have a lot of data backing your decisions and are no longer kind of unsure of that actual peak usage and general activity amongst your users. So that's great, but how do we get there? There's two kind of large unknowns, no matter if you're transitioning one network license or over 100. We want to make sure that we have an idea of which products and versions are being used by exactly which members of your team and for how long. And then, of course, how many named user licenses does that translate to, and what is that renewal spend going to look like? So over the course of today, we're going to kind of talk about some strategies to provide more data and resources to help you answer those two questions. Apologies. Those are graphics up there now. So the transition can be broken into 4 main phases. They will take a varying amount of time depending on how many licenses you do have to move. In the upfront half, we're sort of looking at your historical usage activity, as well as your goals for the future, increases in headcount, that sort of thing, to design exactly what that renewal looks like and how many licenses will need to be traded in. And then in the second half, you're actually moving those network licenses, pivoting them into a named user license type. There's some technical back-end work that goes into this. And then, of course, you're going to figure out how to maintain this new model and serve your users in the ongoing future. In the discovery phase, a lot of what we're doing is defining the roadmap. We're going to work backwards based on your contract end date to figure out when milestones should take place and get all of the stakeholders involved. So this may require some help outside of yourself if you're the primary admin or the contract manager, may require some involvement from IT, finance departments, and a few other folks to get on board right away. So the best starting place when you're thinking about your transition to named user is to look at your current assets, not just the Autodesk assets that are up for renewal the soonest, but holistically how all of your products are working together and which designers are using which products. So here we're looking at an example based on the licenses that our applied software support team uses in the back end. And what the named user trade-in program is offering is an assumption on Autodesk's end that each of your network licenses is probably being used by no more than 2 designers at peak simultaneous usage. So for each of these network licenses that are in bold here, they're going to allow you to trade those in for 2x the amount of single user licenses at the same exact renewal price that you have previously renewed those network licenses. So how that math works out here in this example, these products in bold at the top are network licenses that are available for the trade-in program. So you'll see down here, there's a few kind of one-off products. Arnold, CFD are good examples that are not covered in this program. This is published on Autodesk's website, or if you're unsure, definitely reach out to your applied software sales or customer success rep, and they can help you discern what all is going to be eligible for trade-in. And so at time of renewal out in 2023, we'd be able to receive 80 AEC collections, 40 media and entertainment, and 80 product design, whereas previously we had half of that seat count amount in our network license environment. So this is great. It's easy, simple math. It's not changing your renewal budget. But what we need to figure out is this 2x quantity actually going to serve the needs? Is anybody going to be without a license? And similarly, am I going to be over licensed? Do I need to trade in all of these? So some customers may have a sense of this information already. If you're managing a handful of licenses, or if you don't have a super complex product mix, you may have a good sense of who exactly is using what and when. Similarly, somewhat larger customers might be using a program such as OpenLM to monitor that complex network licensing activity. Additionally, for customers who might need a little bit of help uncovering those historical usage patterns, Applied Software can offer this as a service. So we go in and pull this network information from the debug logger, which is this mess of code you see over here on the right. This is going to automatically extract everyone's user IDs, the feature codes implying which product they're using, which version, and make sure that we have a list of everyone who has shown up on the network license. And we're going to try to translate this network license data into named user behavior to figure out what that kind of end seat count we need to have in mind. So what you want to have in hand as you walk into this transition is what we like to call a workflow automation toolkit, which is a spreadsheet that you're going to be referring back to throughout the process. So you have a list of which workstations are mapped to which Autodesk user ID, who exactly these people are in terms of their first name, last name, and their domain email for your organization. And then really importantly, we will have a sense of exactly what product they're using as well as the exact version. This is a really important component of your upfront analysis as you move towards named user. Unlike in the network license environment, you're only going to have entitlements to current versioning as well as up to 5 back. So 2022 just came out pretty recently. So 2018 onwards is now the version that is both in compliance, available for download, and Autodesk support. So a big part of this, in addition to kind of scanning and surveying your users and determining who is using what, if we're seeing older versions like this, 2015 and 2017, that also lets us know that we're going to need to get that user and probably all that project data upgraded before the transition. So again, some folks have a really good sense of where their versioning compliance is at. Some folks may have a little bit disparity from older projects in other versions. If you're not sure of this, would definitely encourage you to work with Applied Software and try to do some sort of data-driven analysis so that you're not losing any of that project data after your conversion. Once that upfront activity is captured, next step is to kind of analyze that and look into how that will play into the renewal, design exactly what your renewal quantity will be for each product type, and then how does that translate into a budget amount and an actual license spend. When Applied Software provides this analysis, we like to format this in a PowerBi table. And really what we're looking at is the historical usage here. So in this example, we can see a customer had a really high seat count that has been trending down. And this might be an opportunity to help zoom in on, can we remove some of these licenses? Do we have enough of an available pool for future growth, headcount that's going to expand, interns that are going to come in for the summer, that sort of future planning. And then similarly, which projects and programs specifically are stuck out on those older versions that we need to clean up before the transition process. And what this point gives you an opportunity to do is also validate that your product mix is the right for you. So we have seen a few customers who are using their networked AEC collections, but users are maybe only accessing AutoCAD or only accessing Revit, or they're only pulling Inventor from the product design and manufacturing collections. And this is a good point to stop and say, does this usage behavior make sense? Do I want to downgrade these folks to a standalone product, or do I want to train them up to take advantage of these full collections? So there's a lot of choice and option comparison as well as cost comparison that comes in at this point. But what we're finding is with a data-driven upfront analysis like this, you're often able to uncover licenses that you don't need. You're able to cut out that spend and reallocate it towards other products or services that are going to help you out in this transition. Next, we're sort of moving towards the actual transition of the licenses away from networked and into the named user environment. This is a series of phases that all customers will go through, no matter sort of what size. Some of them will be a little bit more in depth. Your named user products will become available the day after your contract end date. So your networked products will, quote, expire, and then the next day, those quantities that you traded in at the named user rate will become available for assignment. Leading up to that point, you're going to want to make sure that every single user who will be consuming a named user license has an Autodesk account, ID, and password set up for them. You're going to be able to assign secondary admin rights so that you, as the primary admin, have some redundancy, other folks, both internally and then with Applied Software as your reseller, who can go in and help you with the general management of licenses. You're going to be able to assign products to users. So again, if we think back to having that spreadsheet of everyone's name and the product that they're mapped to, you're able to use that to bulk upload into the Autodesk portal. Saves a lot of manual time. You'll want to communicate this change out to your users, make sure that they understand there may be a difference in sign-in method. They're no longer monitoring concurrent network license activity, but they have an actual license specifically assigned to them. For folks who are opting for the premium subscription, and a quick high-level overview of the premium subscription, again, the seat threshold is 50 named user seats for this. So if you have 25 or more network seats, you'll be eligible to trade those in for a quantity of above 50. So this may apply to you. The premium subscription is going to provide extended support. So it opens up 24/7 Autodesk support, really good redundancy to a lot of folks who have Applied Software support, but may have critical operations happening over weekends and want to have some coverage for that. For folks who have international offices, this opens you up to centralized purchasing. So licenses can be purchased in, your US entity and shared with other offices. And then the big one that really affects your users and security is the implementation of single sign-on, or SSO. In the standard subscription in the named user model, each user is going to sign in with their Autodesk ID and have a password associated, and there is a little bit of change communication and control associated with that. In the single sign-on model, the user would just log on to their laptop, their desktop as usual in the morning, and everything is integrated through that exact domain. And then additionally, for all customers, regardless of if you're on the premium plan or not, you're going to be able to choose from two different options for switching these installs from the network to the named user model. There's a way for each user to do this themselves, which kind of allows really good clarity about what switch is occurring, helps the user understand that they're no longer on that networked model. But I'd say for folks who have more than about 10 network licenses, you're probably going to want to use a script. This is oftentimes where we get our IT folks involved and help with that deployment. And the last point here, your network license file is going to have a 30-day period of overlap. So when your contract end date occurs, you should start moving everyone over away from the network license file. You'll still have 30 days before that expires, and everyone will be automatically ported to the named user environment. So I'm going to go into a few more details about some of these steps. Secondary admin is definitely an important point. For those who give this credential to Applied Software as the reseller, this allows us to offload a lot of this process from your plate if you so choose. We can go in and do the upfront creation of everyone's Autodesk account and IDs and bulk assign them to the correct products. Similarly, in the named user environment, you'll be allowed to segment your users off into teams. These are used in a lot of different applications. We've seen folks create teams for each of their departments, segmenting engineering from architecture, various design studios, any reason that you would want to monitor seat usage based on different credentials or different user groupings. This is something that Applied Software has helped consult a lot of customers on what the best team formation strategy is. And this is a great point to think about it. And then again, a really big piece is this change communication that's sent out to users. So whether you've got 5 people affected or several hundred, you want to make sure that when those licenses port over, you're not inundated with confusion and requests for general information, and especially people not being able to access their license. So want to make sure that there is a system in place for setting everyone up with their Autodesk account. Folks who are already BIM users or are using other single user products are familiar with this, but to a lot of people, this is going to be new. They're going to make sure that they have an understanding of their Autodesk ID and then are keeping track of that password and able to log in, as that will be required to access their software on the daily. And then generally, folks who are moving to the premium plan, you want to make sure that your users understand the single sign-on method and how that will change their day-to-day logins. We've also coupled this with customer-specific change management, such as writing a knowledge article to make sure that people understand the best practices that are going to be enforced and just some of the different nuances of the named user model. Moving to the next point, when we're actually ready to switch the licenses. Again, for folks with a small pool, there is a user self-guided walkthrough. These directions are published on Autodesk, and your ASTI rep will absolutely get you in touch with the 2 options to either have users self-service or deploy a script. Our recommendation for folks who have a larger pool of licenses is to use the script option. And if we think back to that Excel toolkit that we prepared in the first stage, where we've got everyone's workstation mapped to the exact user and product, that's where this is going to come into play. You're able to deploy this script, map it to everyone's machine from the command line. Again, of course, getting IT involved here to help with that aspect. And then this removes the need to manually go through this process for each user. Really speeds things up. And we can absolutely consult on kind of the packaging of that code to deploy. A lot of folks have taken this opportunity to also send out packages to upgrade from versions 2016, 2017, kind of get the named user package upgraded and implemented all in one swoop. And again, for folks who are opting into the premium option, this kind of comes with an additional onboarding period where we would talk about the usage goals that you want to see at kickoff. Premium provides an extra level of reporting that shows you not only how many licenses are being used and kind of the general license behavior, but maps that to an exact user level. So I can compare user 1 versus user 2, both of whom are using Revit, and kind of drill down into the exact granular daily usage and different features that they're utilizing. And of course, on the SSO side, our team is here to consult on the different staging and then the implementation of this single sign-on program. There's a bunch of different identity providers that are pretty common, and we can help you figure out how to package this and get this out to your users. And then the last phase here is an important one. Not only are we closing out the transition process, again, at that 30-day mark, your network license file is going to have to be decommissioned in order to remain in compliance. Nobody should be working off of the networked environment anymore after that 30-day mark. And from here, we want to think about how to best serve your users ongoing in this new named user environment. So we like to think about this at kind of a business review standpoint, whether that's quarterly. What do we want to be monitoring ongoing? A good example is setting a finite timeline for usage data. Some folks have decided that they want to be really lean with their licensing strategy and not have to have a huge pool of extra licenses available for somebody entering a new project or, a new hire. And they may enforce a best practice such as, if you have not used your license within a 90-day period, it's going to be unassigned from you and you'll have to go through that request process again in order to get it back. There's a lot of different best practices or kind of user level reporting that specific customers are interested in. And so Applied Software is going to work with you on those business review basis in order to kind of share reporting and create some business goals that the named user environment, that data will help you to be able to achieve. And lastly, I've mentioned at a few points throughout here that Applied Software can provide this as a service. We can offhand as much or as little of this process from you as you'd like. This is separated into two different parts, kind of the discovery and then the actual implementation. For the upfront usage analysis, this is just a flat fee for folks who have less than 25 networked licenses. It's at $500. For more than 25 networked, $1,000. And then similarly on the actual transition side, this enables us to take all of the user setup, the license management, the product assignment, emailing, things like the change communication, really holistically managing that process on your behalf. And that is priced at a per seat ratio. If you are opted into Applied Software support, which of course provides ongoing support for all of your products outside of just this transition for the entire length of your contract, our upgraded IRTSA Plus, which is at $149 per seat, this is an included service. And then if you don't want ongoing support and just want help with your license transition, this is available at $49 per named user seat. So all in all, as we've seen based on the poll questions at the very beginning, there's a lot of different customer segmentations based on the license count that you have to manage, the product mix, and a few other factors such as how your users are divided, how your offices are mapped, and how your IT is able to assist you. So Applied Software is here to be a resource. We want you reaching out and asking questions and really preparing for this in advance, and are happy to help you as much as we're able.